All right, welcome back. This is your pharmacist on call, Dr. Sean Pruitt, owner of Pruitt's Discount Pharmacy. Today we're going to talk about COVID-19 again, but this time we're going to discuss risk factors. Who is at risk for contracting and dying from this disease? So I did some research, and it looks like there are a couple of factors that kind of tie in who survives and who dies. So we pretty much know that this virus is a SARS virus. It is a respiratory virus. Severe acute respiratory syndrome is what it causes. But lately, people have been dying from some other things, and there have been certainly a sharp increase in the number of African Americans dying. And so we want to kind of know why. There are a number of different health conditions and reasons that go into why people are demising. The first is current diseases that you have. So what we would call comorbidities to having something else. So these are going to be hypertension, cardiovascular disease in general, whether it's heart failure, arrhythmias, or what have you, diabetes, kidney disease, issues like asthma and COPD, which are respiratory issues. So these are all things that look like they are really significant in terms of determining whether or not someone survives COVID-19 or not. So we want to find out, why is that? Is it the fact that you're African American, that you have a lack of access to appropriate health care? Certainly that plays a role. But let's dig a little deeper. So we know that the way that this virus replicates itself is through the ACE2 receptor. It attaches to it, goes into the cell, and then it replicates. So what does that mean? I mean, it goes into the lungs, it does its thing, and it just builds up a team of virus particles or virions until it causes pneumonia. But what we did not know is that there are ACE2 receptors in the heart, in the kidneys, in the pancreas, in the small intestines. And so this is why we're seeing the myriad of symptoms that we're seeing from patients who present with COVID-19. So in particular, when you see someone present with nausea and diarrhea and vomiting, that's because the ACE2 gene, or the ACE2 receptors, have a high expression. When you see someone, and particularly the amount of African Americans dying from cardiac issues, it's the amount of ACE2 receptors expressed. So if you can imagine what it does to the lungs, now extrapolate that over to the heart. Heart is already going through issues. The virus comes in contact, it goes through the ACE2 receptor into the heart, replicates itself, and causes all sort of damage inside of the cardiovascular system. The same with the kidneys, the same with the pancreas, which is why we have patients with diabetes also dying. And in case you did not know, diabetes is pancreatic insufficiency. Your pancreas is not kicking out enough insulin or being able to deal with it, and so that's why blood sugar stays in your system. So the truth is, it's more than a respiratory virus. This is a multi-organ destruction machine. And I haven't heard anyone else say that, but just looking at the research, that's what it is. And so it takes advantage of wherever those ACE2 receptors are. And if you have a comorbidity, it's going to kill you that way. So that's your disease. That's just one factor in determining whether or not you're going to survive this thing. The other thing is, it seems to extrapolate into ethnicity. Now, there was some research done in Wuhan looking at ACE2 expression in different ethnicities. And they saw that the ACE2 expression, as far as the lungs went, was high in Asian males, which explains why they were the majority of the deaths there. So ACE2 expression in the lungs, when the virus begins to replicate, of course, it causes an immune cascade, and you develop pneumonia through oxidative stress. All right. So likewise, they've also found that ACE2 expression, like I said, in the small intestines, the small intestine, the heart, the kidneys, the pancreas, and you know what else I forgot? The testes. So this thing potentially can affect your ability to reproduce. And I had heard that, but I didn't believe it at first. And now I have a scientific basis for why this may be a sterilizing virus. So we're going to see once we do the studies and follow people through their course, whether their sexual reproductive organs were affected any. All right, so race. It appears that Asian males with this strain in Wuhan were more affected because they had a higher expression of ACE2 receptors in their lungs. So what we need to find out is do other races have higher expressions of ACE2? So far, the research shows no. In terms of the lungs, Asian males, white males, and then African American males. So that's the race component. So certainly, if this thing wanted to destroy Asians, it picked the right place to do it, and it picked the right people, knowing that this ACE2 had a high expression in the lungs. The third component determining, and it seems to determine whether or not you survive this thing, believe it or not, people, it is your blood type. That's right, the ABO blood group. So based on research that they did in, I believe, Shenzhen and Wuhan also, they looked at the ACE2 expression in the different blood groups. So you have your O blood group, you have your A, your B, and your ABs. And what they found out that the people who suffered the worst or had the highest ACE2 expression were your blood type A's. And it looked like it went from going from worst to the person that would fare best. A's had it the worst. Well, A's and ABs had it the worst. B a little bit better, and then the O's had a very low expression of ACE2. So it seems like the O had a very low chance of contracting or even dying from. So if you are in the O positive or O negative, it looks like you may have caught a break with regard to COVID-2. But again, we got to go back to factor one, is whether or not you have any of the pre-existing health conditions that's going to cause a rebound expression of ACE2. So in the case of someone who has heart disease, in a normal person, your ACE2 is going to be low. In a person with cardiac disease, your ACE2 expression is going to be high. And we're not sure if that's because they're being upregulated by ACE inhibitors and ARBs or what have you, but it's there. So it looks like in people who are sick, your ACE2 receptor gene is expressed higher, therefore giving more places for that virus to get into to infect that organ. So again, as it appears to me, this is a multi-organ destruction virus. It's not just solely respiratory. And looking at that based on the research out of China and what it's doing to the numbers, certainly in African Americans with these comorbidities. So next video will be about blood types and what can you do about it. If you're type A, you probably need to be on a diet that optimizes your chance for being the healthiest that you can be. That's the only way I see beating this thing, along with the aforementioned supplements that I talked about in the previous video, is that you've got to get your health up. If you're a hypertensive patient, we got to get that blood pressure down with things like beetroot juice, coenzyme Q10. Your personal diabetes, we got to get that sugar under control with beetroot juice, alkaline water. You're someone suffering from kidney disease, we got to get those kidneys functioning normally with something like burdock root. Okay, so that's just a small number of just supplements that could potentially help you. But for A's, B's, O's, next video we're going to talk about what type of diet you should be on, probably what type of supplements you should be on to be in optimal health so that when your body encounters this thing, you'll be ready to fight. This is Dr. Sean Pruitt, your pharmacist on call. Oh, and certainly comment below if you have any other questions or if you have any comments about it. Let me know. Signing out. Thank you.